Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, I have the privilege of, having as our facilitator someone I respect and have known for a while, even though from the sidelines. His name is Mr. Bazalai Mohammed. He's an associate of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, and is also a member of the Institute of Training and Development, and is a member of Toastmasters International, having attained the highest honors of Distinguished Toastmasters, which is something I have and I value. I'll just quickly read his profile briefly to us. Bazalai is an accomplished financial professional with over 15 years in diverse experience in finance, business communication, human resources, and education. He has robust academic foundation with a commitment to continuous professional development, which he has demonstrated in the financial sector, client relationship management, training, facilitation, project management. A strong background in promoting financial inclusion and digital financial services has equipped him to lead interdisciplinary teams effectively, engaging stakeholders strategically, and driving organizations' success. Bazalai holds certifications from the International Finance Corporation, IFC, as a TPMA certified trainer, trained the trainer certification from Udemy, and an associate of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, Training and Development Manager, certification from Skillsoft. He's also a member of the National Institute of Training and Development and actively participates in Toastmasters International, where he serves as Club Growth Director, Trainer, Mentor, and Area Director. Tonight, he will be facilitating a session on engaged minds, strategies for effective knowledge transfer across generation. Engaged minds, strategies for effective knowledge transfer across generation. Bazalai, I hereby hand over the virtual lecture to you. You have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, colleagues, and welcome to this knowledge transfer session. First of all, I want to appreciate Mr. Oluyemi for the wonderful introduction and for having me in the midst of this wonderful people, where I'll be making a presentation on engaging minds, the strategies for effective knowledge transfer across generations. As he said, my name is Bazalai Mohammed, and for the next hour, I'll be presenting on the strategies so that we can use. So this is what we're going to be having for our session, which is a brief agenda. We're going to see what knowledge transfer is. We're going to see what the importance of knowledge transfer is, the types of knowledge transfer, the generation types, benefits, challenges. And we're also going to see the strategies for effective learning knowledge transfer. Then I'm going to conclude with showing us the types of knowledge transfer for each of the generations. Then we are going to conclude and I'll take questions or answers. So I welcome you to this session. And if you have any question at any particular point in time, you may type it in the chat box or you raise your hand, I will attend to it. Thank you very much. So knowledge transfer. Recently, most of our organizations have found ourselves in a situation where we have different generations of people working at the same time. In some organizations, we have up to 5 different generations of people working together. Now, the knowledge transfer is very important for each organization to thrive. We need to have this knowledge transfer session. We need a staff strength that is willing and able to work. And with the different generations that we have in our organization, it's becoming increasingly difficult for us to use one size fits all for all of the particular generations. For example, you can take classroom teaching and say, okay, today as a learning and development professional of my organization, I'm going to use only classroom teaching, and you get the value for what you're doing. You cannot do that as of now. Because of the different generations that we have, we must make sure that we're able to pass the information and knowledge that we want across all of the different generations. Now, knowledge transfer is all about sharing the valuable skills, experience, and information from seasoned employees to different generations. That for the people that have been working there or others who are specialists, they're supposed to transfer their knowledge to us who are their training so that we learn how to move the organization forward. Remember, the organization is an ongoing entity and supersedes a single individual. So as we are moving along, some people come into the organization and they move, then others join. So the organization keeps going and going. So this knowledge needs to be transferred in order for the organization to continue moving. This transfer of knowledge can happen through formal education training programs or informal, which I will show you later. But the essence is effective knowledge transfer ensures that there's continuity in expertise and fosters innovation in a company. Now, take for example, now you have an organization and you say that, okay, we need this particular knowledge transfers. And while you're transferring this knowledge, it becomes difficult for you to transfer it to different generations. So we need to make sure that this information that we need to share is shared across different generations so that the organizations can move forward. So the next slide, I'm going to show you the importance of knowledge transfer. Now, knowledge transfer is very important because it helps the organization to move forward. As an ongoing entity, we need to continually improve on the existing systems. We need to ensure that when people move or retire, the next people that are taking over, they are sufficiently equipped with the knowledge, skills, and other abilities to make sure that the organization moves forward. Remember, I told you that the organization is an ongoing entity. So no matter what, it has to go ahead. So some of the importance of knowledge transfer in organization is that it preserves institutional memory and expertise. There are so many times that we have to go back and look for historical antecedents in order to move forward. So it preserves our institutional memories. There are so many memories that we have and expertise that if someone lives with it without sharing that information, it's lost forever. So we need to make sure that these informations are stored. We need to make sure that this information is passed across to different generations of individuals in order for them to learn better. Sorry, excuse me. One moment, please. Okay, sorry about that. Am I audible now? Can I have a thumbs up if I'm audible?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that brief break. So secondly, the second importance of knowledge transfer is that it improves employee performance and productivity. Now, there are so many things that employee needs in order to move forward, in order to do the work that's supposed to do. And these kind of things are only gained through knowledge transfer. And you can remember when we joined our organization, they called us Jambitos. We came in and we didn't understand some of the processes. We didn't understand some of the things that we're going through. But gradually, as we're mentored by our superiors, gradually, as we're taught so many things, we came to understand what our organizations are all about. And today, we are the people that are giving out that knowledge to the people that just come. We look at them and we say, oh, welcome to this world. So it improves employees' performance and productivity. Then thirdly, it fosters innovation and problem solving. Now, one of the dangers of having an organization that is stagnant is that it cannot move ahead. So as much as possible, we need to be innovative in the way that we're thinking. I started working in the commercial bank around 2005. And in that time, ATM was not very prevalent among many people. They preferred to come to the bank with their passbook, collect their money, we record it. Then there was a digital transformation, the system came up. So they had the passbook they gave us, until now that you can sit comfortably in your home, make transfers, you can use your ATM. You don't even need to visit the banking hall as of today to open an account. You can imagine that. So all of these kind of things are coming because of innovation. They come because of the knowledge that we transfer and share with each and every one of us and the people that are coming into the organization. Then the next one is that it reduces onboarding time for new hiring. Now, in most organizations today, when someone joins the pool of staff, in most organizations, they tend to assign a mentor for him. Now, this mentor is supposed to hold his hand, to pull him through and show him the way that things are supposed to do. In most organizations, they just hand you over to your supervisor who puts you through on the processes of the organization and how you can perform your duties as a staff. So it reduces this onboarding time. Knowledge sharing reduces, knowledge transfer reduces this onboarding time for staff. Then the last one, it creates a competitive advantage. Now, for every organization that we have, there are plenty of organizations. Let's take an example of commercial banks. Today, we have almost 27, 28. There are different commercial banks in Nigeria. So the thing that you're not doing, another organization will do it. So in order to remain competitive, there has to be that lifelong learning. There has to be knowledge transfer to ensure that information is passed from one generation to another, so that there's succession planning, so that it ensures that the legacy of that particular organization continues to persevere across time. And that gives us a competitive advantage. You will not say that a bank that was opened recently can compete with a bank that has been in existence for over 100 years. There is that competitive advantage because they have been in the system, they have tested the waters, they have gone through the challenges, and they have succeeded in solving those problems. So it gives them a competitive advantage. So these are some of the importance of knowledge transfer in organizations, and why organizations need to ensure that at all times there is knowledge transfer among its employees. Sorry, excuse me. So any question before I move on? Okay, yes, thank you. So let's look at the types of knowledge transfer. Now, generally, I decided to group the knowledge transfer into two. We have tacit knowledge transfer, and we have explicit knowledge transfer. Most knowledge transfer are grouped under these two. They're the general categorization of knowledge transfer in organization. But the tacit knowledge transfer is that kind of informal and experiential learning that we have in organizations. For example, there's mentorship, discussion, practical demonstrations. When you're taken to a new unit or when you're employed in an organization, you're handed over to your superior. And most times, our superiors say, okay, you, please, Mr. So-so, take care of this guy and put him through. So that's experiential learning. You get to learn on the job. You get to practicalize everything that you're doing, and you learn from this. And this particular type of knowledge transfer is very, very important because it imparts the nuanced skills and expertise that are there in the organization, that have been in the organization for long, and it gives an understanding of the processes, the system of the organization, and the people that you're working with. So tacit knowledge transfer is like an experiential learning, and it's very important in organizations. Then we move to the explicit knowledge transfer. Now, in the explicit knowledge transfer, it's all about the formal or systematic exchange of documented knowledge. Now, for these kind of things, we have manual guidelines, we have training, and so on and so forth. So for this particular type of training, they are facilitated in a structured learning format like modules. We have training, we have workshops, we have on-the-job training that are particular for each. For example, you have different units in an organization. So for each unit, they have a documented manual. So you're going to have on-the-job training on this particular manual where they show you the way that things are being done. Or for example, you're training on different competencies, let's say behavioral competencies. Now, for most organizations, they already have the documented list of behavioral competencies that they want a particular staff to have at a particular time. Let's say on a particular grade, as a manager, you have to have some competencies like communication, leadership. So you can develop trainings for these kind of competencies that you need based on the demands of your organization. So this is the kind of explicit knowledge transfer that we have in the organization. Now, it is essential for any organization to move forward that knowledge is transferred from one person to another or across different generations of the organization, because as an entity, people come in and they go. But we must make sure that at all times we have the right people with the right knowledge, skills, and other abilities for the right job at the right time, because it would be very dangerous and expensive for organizations not to have the right mix of people for the job at a particular time. And the only way that they could do this is through knowledge transfer. So let's move forward. Okay, so we're living in interesting times now, and organizations are faced with a peculiar issue. We have 5 different generational groups working at the same time now in most organizations. Although for the silent generations, like the people that were born in 1945 and before, mostly they come in as executives or political appointments. But based on the Nigerian rule, we're supposed to retire after 65 years, except for lecturers, or otherwise, we're supposed to have either 35 years or service or attaining 60 years of age. So based on that, you'll see that we have some people that are in baby. For traditionalists, most of them are supposed to have retired, but for political appointees and maybe private organization, we might have people who have surpassed that age. So that's why I decided to include it here. So let's look at the 5 different generations of generational groups in the workforce. So first one we have is the silent generation. These are people that were born in 1945 or before. And some of the characteristics that they have is that they like respect for authority, they're hard workers, and they follow rules to the letter. If they say go right, they go right. They don't like to innovate, they don't like to cut corners, they follow the rules word by word. Then we have the baby boomers, who were born between 1945 and 1964. They are very optimistic, they are workaholics, they are loyal to the cause, and they have deep experience. These people have been able to gather deep experience in the workforce, and most of work, and they weren't much. So they were able to gather experience so much. Then we have the Generation X. Now, these are individuals that were born between 1965 and 1976, and their characteristics is that they are task-oriented, they focus on work-life balance, they like work-life balance, and they are risk takers. They like to take risks. Then we have the Millennials, which many of us fall between. We were born between 1977 and 1995. We are goal-focused and we multitask a lot. You'll see a lot of us doing so many works at different times, and we're tech-savvy. We like to use tech. Then there are juniors who are the Generation Z. They are born in 1996 and after, and they are creative, they're entrepreneurial, they are tech-dependent, and they are self-reliant. If you look at them, they like to be self-reliant. They don't like to be told, do this, do that. No. So we're having a lot of problems in organizations. Now, for any organization to move forward, you need to make sure that these 5 generational groups are in sync with each other. It's like a system. And if the system does not connect like this, then there's no way it can move. So we must make sure as human resource personnel that this generation works in sync with one another. That's the task that we have. Each of this generation has a different expectation, communication style, learning styles, and everything. So as an organization, we can't sit down and say that, okay, look, we are not going to follow anyone's rule. No, we're going to do what we want, and we're going to do this. No, you're going to fail. It has gotten to a time now that we have to adapt to these individuals. We have to find a way to make them work. Now, let me show a statistics. This is a statistics that was taken by LinkedIn recently to see the composition of these different generational workforces in particular organizations. This was an organization in the United States of America. I tried to look for the one in Nigeria, but unfortunately, I couldn't find it. So I had to use this one. I wanted to see the composition of workers that we have in Nigeria so that I'll share with you, but unfortunately, I couldn't get it. So for the traditional list, there are only 2% of them that are in the workforce in the United States of America as of now. Then for the baby boomers, there are, for the baby boomers, there are 10%. For the Gen Z, there are 10%. For the baby boomers, they are 15%. For the Generation X, they are 33%. And for the millennials, we have 40%. So this is the current state that we have the generation mix of workforce. That's for the United States of America. So imagine having this mix of people, individuals working in your organization. How do you make them to work in sync with one another? It's very difficult, but for human resource professionals, we have to make sure that they work together. Now, we're talking about transferring of knowledge. So how do you transfer knowledge across to this different group of people and ensure that there's justification for what you have done and there is return on investment for the training that you have invested money on? Because as a training and development professional, we're supposed to justify the funds that have been given to us to train people. And it comes in improvement in the work that we're doing in output and other things. So there are several benefits that are accruable from having a multi-generational workforce. Some of them is that we have multiple perspectives. Before, because of the different experiences that we have in different generations, each generation has its own way of looking at the world, and they will provide their perspective based on that way that they look at the world. So it's an advantage to workforce. When you get this different perspective, then you can choose the one that's most suitable for the particular reason why you want justification for something. For that particular time, you can choose it for that scenario and use it so that you could solve your problem. Then there's problem-solving abilities. With different ideas coming up, we can be able to get information that we can solve our problems. People are now being able to solve problems because you do not have to bring your own solution alone. A lot of people can bring in their solutions, and when they bring in the solution, when one person brings in the solution, the next person brings in the solution, you choose the ones that's the best fit for solving your problem, and you solve that problem. Then there are a lot of learning and mentoring opportunities. There are sometimes when we go to our seniors, the stories that they tell us, once someone is willing to share the information, you see that he has gone a lot. And lifelong learning is something that you do not have to learn from the classroom. It's something that from mentoring, from collaborating with each other, you can learn a lot of things once you're open to learning. Because if you feel that there's nothing you can learn in an encounter, whether good or bad, then you're not going to learn. But once you're open to learning, let's say, for example, a Generation Z comes in, or a millennial, and you tell them as a baby boomer that there's nothing you can teach me, then you're in a mistake. There are a lot of things that they are savvy to, that they know that we don't know, and we can learn from it to move forward. Recently, there's this conference that I went to, and someone spoke about the use. Now, most people don't like using TikTok because they feel that, he said that there was a research that most older people don't use TikTok because they feel that there's no use of it. But he said there are a lot of people that are making billions of naira from the use of TikTok to sell their services, and they know the generation that they're targeting, and they get sales from that targeting they do through TikTok. So it means that wherever you are, whether you like it or not, the use of technology is very, very important. And if you want to move into the future, then you just have to adapt with it. So learning and mentoring opportunities are there in multi-generational workforce. Then there's knowledge transfer and retention. There's a lot of knowledge that is being shared. And the way that the interaction goes on, it gives us the ability to retain most information. Then there's unique relationships in the way that we work. Now, in most organizations, you will see that there are lots of people who you see, like someone who is 28 years and he's blessed to have passed someone who is 40 years and he's the superior and he's the supervisor. Whereas before, you will hardly see that. But in this kind of unique relationships that we have, in this time that we have, you'll see someone that is your junior, he'll be your supervisor because of some things that he has, maybe some certifications, or maybe he has jumped through different organizations and he has gathered experience and promotion and he's higher than you. So there are these kind of unique opportunities. So that's some of the benefits of having a multi-generational workforce. Now, we have a challenge. The challenge is that you cannot have a one-size-fits-all way of knowledge transfer across different generations. For now, we do not have that luxury. Before, well, when the generations were not too complex like this, you can put a particular generation in a classroom and say, we're going to transfer learning through classroom, and they will all understand, they will assimilate, and there will be a change in their behavior. Remember that all of the learnings, the knowledge transfer sessions that we're doing, we are doing it in order to elicit a change in behavior towards the way that we want them to work. When you teach people on communication skill, you're expecting them to improve on their workplace communication among their colleagues, among their superiors or subordinates. So it means that you need to see a change in behavior after that training. So imagine a situation where you train someone and he doesn't understand and you don't see that change in behavior. That means that there is no return on investment for that training that you have done. So one of the biggest hurdles that we have now in knowledge transfer is that we need to bridge that generational gap. Each generation has its own unique learning preferences, and it's becoming very challenging because we have our different communication styles, we have our different technological preferences and work value. We all have our different preferences. So let's look at the problems one by one. So for the first one is that there's a generational difference in learning preferences. There is a way that some people now, there's this vague theory of learning, and we have the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and writing, VAR. We have the visual, the auditory, writing, and kinesthetic people, the way we learn. So for most generations, for example, those generations that are back, they like to, do you know that there are some people that they still like to read the newspapers? I have a boss in the office and he still likes to buy his newspapers. While we can have this thing on the tablet or on the system, but he still likes to see the physical newspaper. He still prefers to read physical books. He still prefers to be in the classroom than to take online learning. So, but for most of us, we prefer to have this online learning because it gives us the ability to assimilate more information. When you're tired, you can pause, you can move, you go and do something, then you come back. But you do not have that luxury in the classroom. Now, for the most of the Generation Z, they prefer things that are videos, podcasts, you know, these kind of things. So we all have our different learning styles. So how can you tailor a training transfer to make sure that all of these particular generations understand what you're trying to send, the information, and you get that desired change in behavior? That's problem number one. Now, the problem number two is dwindling attention span. Recently, I read that in the American Medical Association, they found out that the medical students in America, they're continuously failing exam. So they decided to do a survey on the cause of this particular issue. And they found out that Previously, the attention span of an individual was between 11 to 14 minutes. That is to say, a person can be attentive for a period of 11 to 14 minutes without a change in stimuli, without thinking of anything. But nowadays, because of the information that we're consuming from the use of our phones, from the text messages, the videos, Facebook, and everything, they say that on a daily basis, we consume almost 5,000 images, text, videos, and so on. So our brain is becoming overloaded, coupled with the fact that there are a lot of issues now going around the price of petrol. And so there is a lot of things that at the back of our mind. So now the attention span of individuals is between 5 to 7 minutes. It's no longer 11 to 14 minutes, but 5 to 7 minutes. So within that 5 to 7 minutes, you must make sure that at each interval, you try to send in an information before you change the stimuli, so that his brain, because we have short-term memory and long-term memory, and there's a processing. So by the time the information is processed, already the long-term memory is already full with the information that we're getting. And most of the information that comes in newly, we sometimes dismiss it. And in doing that, we do not learn. So attention span is becoming very short, and we need to have training programs that are between that range to 5 to 7 minutes. If you have taken cognizance of most of the online learnings that we have now, you see that the videos are within 7 minutes. The videos mostly are within 7 minutes because they have seen that they break down the videos. They do not bring a video. In most training platforms now, you will not see a video of 1 hour, 50 minutes. No, you'll see them breaking down, even if it's in the same module, but they will be breaking them down. Maybe according to this, like for instance, this challenge, it will be for 7 minutes. Then they move on to the next slide. So that is the way now learning is going, because they found this particular issue of attention deficit. Then the third problem is that between the tacit and the explicit knowledge transfer, which one are you going to choose? Because although the experiential learning is very good and it's easier and cheaper for us, but at various times, the people are not equipped to transfer this knowledge, because training requires special training. So that's why we have train the trainers. And if you do not have this kind of trainings in your organization, then they will not be equipped to make sure that they have transferred the information in a way that it's supposed to be transferred. And in doing that, most of the things that I want to transfer, it will be lost. So we have to make sure that what particular type of training do we choose? What kind of knowledge transfer do we choose for a particular gap or skill gap or particular problem that we want to solve? If it's about behavioral competence, okay, let's say in behavioral competencies, communication, we have seen that you have a deficit in communication. I want to train you so that you'll be able to fill that gap. Is it by experiential learning, or is it by a specialized training, where we give you modules, we give you training manuals that you can use to improve yourself? So we have to choose the right one in order for us to succeed. So let me throw this question out to you, to our participants. What is the way out in order to bridge this gap that we're having? Because on one hand, we have to make sure that we transfer, knowledge is transferred across different generations, and it is done to elicit a change in behavior, and we must make sure that there is that change in behavior. And on another hand, you're having 5 different generations in your workplace, each with its own unique communication style, with its own unique learning style. So let me throw it out to you before I tell you, let's see your perspective. How do you think we can bridge this gap? You can either chat it or you can turn your camera and speak. We have 3 minutes for this exercise. Can someone bail us out?
Yes.
Okay, Aisha Tabasmos.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm super excited to be in this session. So for me, even though I am part of the Millennium group, my suggestion is for those that are generation after us that have low deficit span, you said? low attention span. And then for those before us that prefer the newspaper kind of transfer of information, I think we can come to a kind of, should I say, agreement. There should be a bit of all so that it should be sandwiched. Like we that we can take our time, like the baby boomers, they can try to upgrade to understand what the digital life looks like now. Then for those that are generation after us, they should try to understand that there was a process before now. They should know a bit of it. I think in that way, they will be able to have a meeting point whereby everybody benefits from what the generation offers. Thank you. Laraba's hand is up.
Okay. Okay, Laraba, you can speak. Thank you, Ms. Asiata.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
So I agree with Asiata Banmas. A few months ago, I had the opportunity of learning on Coursera. So there's something beautiful about this. The thing with Coursera is that they do a little of everything. So there are videos, there are exercises, there are also audios some other times, and then there's additional reading materials. It's not just one, but they have a mix of all. So this is going to reach out to everybody's need. And I feel if you add this in learning style or teaching style in this organization, it's going to cut across every generation and everybody is going to benefit. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we have Umar who said constant knowledge transfer session. Okay, it's always very good to be reminded. Thank you very much. Can we have one more? Okay, so they said fantastic communication can be enhanced using the various platforms for emphasis, and also repetition might come in to ensure permanence and clarity. So thank you very much. So all of you are correct, because as I said, in most of the learning platforms, like Laraba said, they have a different mix, so that the different learning styles are catered for. Remember, I told you that there's this VAC model that was brought in by Ian Fleming in 1971, where he said we have 4 different types of learners. He said they're the visual, they're the auditory, they're the kinesthetics, and they are those who write. I remember when I was in the university, if I do not write something, after writing my notes, I have to go down and sit down in order to memorize what I have been taught. I have to rewrite it again. So there are those kind of people that they have to write constantly. There's this guy in our class that he will just sit down at the back. He will listen to what the lecturer says. And believe you me, he doesn't need to write. He'll come and write and pass the exam. In fact, he's one of the best. So for those kind of people, they're visual, they remember scenarios. He'll give you scenarios from A to Z of what happened in a particular class. So those kind of people are those blessed. So you need to make sure that, okay. So you need to make sure that for each of these individuals, you develop a way to catch out for them. So let's look at, so thank you very much for your contributions. They are all correct. And communication also is very, very important, which I'm going to show here. That is the first thing. Now, in order for us to develop a learning plan or a knowledge transfer session, there are a lot of considerations that we need to take. So we're going to look at some of the strategies before we move on to the different type of knowledge transfer. So the first thing is you need to understand your audience. That is, when you're having a training, you need to understand the people that are going to be there. Is it that it's going to be a mixture of all of the generations? Or when you're preparing your learning plan, you're going to put each class according to its generation so that you take one particular method and use it. But if you're using if you're going to mix them together, then you first of all have to make sure that you understand your audience, you recognize their diverse learning needs, preferences, and you develop your curriculum according to that. That's why in Udemy, that's why in Coursera, Skillsoft, you'll see that in all of their trainings, in all of the modules, you'll see that they have notes that you can read, they have audio, they have video, and they have areas where you have to go as a kinesthetic fellow because they like to be engaged with other people. So there is a platform where you can go and share your experiences, discuss with others. So most of the advanced learning plans now use that particular method of mixing all. Then you have to design for inclusivity. You have to make sure that your learning platform, it's all-inclusive, all-inclusive. Gone are the days when as HR professionals or as owners of organization will say, hey, you're going to do it like this, whether you like it or not. You're going to a classroom training. In the end, you're just going to spend your money and there will not be any return on investment. Then what type of learning are you going to do? Is it online? Is it workshop, mentoring program? I know of people who still like to travel, no matter where they're going, to attend physical classroom because they say there's that need for collaboration, prefer to take their online courses. They don't like traveling, they don't like mixing with people. So if they will have online courses, they fare better than going to classroom because they fear that, in most of the classroom, it's kind of, they will say, okay, we're going to have a classroom where everyone is going to contribute. And some people do not like contributing. They do not like contributing. So they prefer to take their online classes. Then the other thing is communication, as someone rightly said in the chat book. We need to make sure that we establish clear and open communication channels, and the learners, they need to be informed and engaged throughout the learning process. Now, there's something funny about communication. Sometimes we communicate with people and we believe that they have understood what we have said, or they have understood the order or the knowledge that we have transferred to them. But in almost 56%, as I have seen one of the research that was done by John Maxwell, and he said almost 65% of the time, the communication has not passed through. And one of the issues is that we're not keeping a clear line of communication. We just give orders and we do not wait for responses. We do not wait for responses. We don't wait to see whether there's a change in behavior. We just send the message, and as far as we're concerned, we have done it. But in many cases, 56% of the time, communication is not complete. It's not complete. So you have to make sure, and this one is very, very important. We need to make sure that there's an open line of communication whenever we're developing these learning plans, whenever we're sharing information and transferring knowledge, especially across different generations. Make sure you find a way of getting feedback, whether the person has properly understood, so that there would be that change in behavior into what you want it to be. There will be that change in behavior. Okay. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, so one of the ways that we can overcome this particular challenge that we have is personalized learning for all the workforce generation. Now, what does this mean? This means that we have to make sure that all of the learning is personalized towards the individuals. It's no longer about us choosing for them. It's about them, the learners, choosing how they want to learn and what they want to learn. There's this particular issue that once happened in our organization. Someone was just given a course without consideration. He was never asked. And unfortunately, he has already paid his own money and he has done the same course. So he went there and he met with the trainer and he said, what are you doing here? He said, I don't know. I was just given a course. No one asked me and I said, I must come. So as much as possible as training specialists, as HR professionals, when we're trying to select courses for individual, we must make sure that it's something that they need. There are some things like, for example, there are these competency tests that we take in organizations to get the level of competencies. Are you up to par with the competency that is required for a particular organization? And after these assessments have been taken, we found out that maybe there's a gap in one competency or another. So these competencies, you yourself took them. And if you do an honest assessment, they are a reflection of what you need. So after these competencies, after these assessments, you find out that, okay, this is what this person needs. So you can say, okay, in the 3 competencies that you're lacking, which one would you like for us to train you, and which one are you going to do yourself? He chooses the one that he can learn on his own, and he chooses the one that you have to train him. So one of the things that we have to do for personalized learning is that let the learner take the lead. You have to empower individuals, as I have said. They know what they're lacking. In some cases, they know. In some cases, they do not know. So if you do not take assessments, but in most organizations, they take assessments, and after appraisal, they will ask the appraiser that, okay, what is the skill gap of this particular employee? Now, as you are sitting down in the appraisal chat with your supervisor, you are supposed to accept that, okay, what he said is true. I'm lacking communication skills. In technical competencies, I'm lacking this. In professional, I'm lacking this. So in all of the competencies, this is what I'm lacking. You sit down and you agree, okay, this is what I need to be trained upon. Okay, which one do you want the organization to train? And they select it in which format. So you have to allow the learners. One of the times that we will say as HR professionals, you have to do it. Honestly, 80% of the time, if you send them, there's not going to be return on investment, because people now, you know, the way the generation is, we just have to find a way to communicate and reach an impasse. We have to reach an agreement based on everyone's time. If not, then most of the times we're not going to get value for our money that we're spending. Then you have to explain the benefits of learning. Yes, you heard me right. When I heard this thing, the first time I heard it, they said you have to explain why you're teaching the person something, and you have to re-emphasize again on the importance of them doing that. Then you emphasize again. So in most learning terms now, there's one particular training that I went, they said for a particular, if you're trying to elicit a change in behavior in a person, you don't just tell him, do this. No, you have to tell him what it entails, why he needs it, and you need to reinforce at the end that this is the reason that he needs it. This is a situation that we found ourselves with different generations. So in order to get value for money, you have to explain to the benefits of the learning to the particular participant or the employee, because if you do not clarify the purpose behind the learning, then at most instances, you will not get value for it. A person will just go for the value of going, he'll just take costs, you know, and we have different AI tools now. People can just use ChatGPT, get the answers, answer the assessment, and go. And it's a waste of resources. And the organization would be affected by it. Then the last thing is experiential learning. Now, experiential learning is learning on the job. And this is one of the best forms of personalized learning, because it gives you the ability to see it practically. You know, people are being given actual projects. All of the things that we did in our university days that were theories, we're now practicalizing them. The theories of communication, theories of leadership, and we're now seeing them in our own eyes. We're seeing them, okay, theory of leadership, this is a dictator. You will see the picture of a dictator. The person is an actual dictator in the office. He bosses you around and does everything. You'll just remember some of the theories that you have been taught in the university. So experiential learning helps us a lot. It's, you know, and in most organizations, what they do is they do not allow a single person to stay in a particular position for a long time. There's redeployment, they move you around, or if there are different branches, they say, okay, in the 3 years, you're supposed to move. Why they do this is because you need to be working under different scenarios. Once you learn, once you're working in the same scenario, the same stimuli for a very long time, then there's every chance that you just become, you know, the work becomes routine. There's nothing new. There's no innovation. But once you move to another place and you see a different problem, then you'll be thinking on your feet, there will be more innovation. So experiential learning is very important for organizations, and we need to make sure that we try to formalize it in a way that people learn. let's make it formal in most organizations, because I know in most organizations, in fact, once they post you to a particular unit, or they say go around all of the units and see what is being done, so that you can understand the way things are going. Because as I said, the organization is an ongoing entity, and whether we like it or not, we are there for the organization. So it supersedes the action of a single individual. And we must make sure that we post that justification that our employers had in employing us to come and work with them. We must make sure that the aim, the objectives, and the goal of that organization, we make sure that we work hard to fulfill it, and we make sure that we protect the organization at all costs. Okay, so now what I decided to do is that I decided for each of the generations, I bring out the particular knowledge transfer sessions that is applicable to them, so that you can try and see, you can go and look at it and you can apply it to your organization. So for the baby boomers from 1946 to 1964, they like formal training programs, that the one that they go to the classroom, you know, there is report at the end of the training, people come and talk to them. They like this kind of formal training. Mentorship and coaching. You can remember, even those who retired, they like telling stories about what they went through. And in most of the stories that they're telling you, you also see that other people mentor them, and they really appreciate it. They really appreciated it. And that was how they were able to go to the place, the high place that they are in their organizations, and persevere and reach a particular position. So for them, mentorship and coaching is there. Then there's the Generation X, who are born between the 1965 and 1980. They like community of practice. They like to share among their peers. You will see that for these particular people, there's a strong bond within them. They know their families, you know, this kind of strong connection among them. They know everything about it. They're the best friends among themselves in a particular workplace. And they also prefer on-the-job training. On-the-job training. Unlike now, you'll see that for most of our generations, we don't even know the houses of each other. We just come to work and we leave. That is it. We do not have a relationship. Unless if you're close to a person, you're very close to a person. But in this generation, there's that the synergy of being that, having that community practice is not there. It's not there at all. So for the Generation X, they like community of practice. They like to collaborate. They like to solve problems together. So for this kind of people, you bring them in for scenario type of courses. You put them in groups. You ask them to solve problems and come and share. Then they also like on-the-job training. They like to hear from experiences of others. So for the millennials, those who are born between the 1981 to 1996, they are digitalized, and they are tech savvy. Mentoring. Now, in reverse mentoring, you allow other people to teach you. You allow other people to teach you, where they come in and, you know, your superiors, your subordinates, you learn a lot of things from them. You ask them about like digital, like recently I was learning on all of this cloud computing and others. I'm not good at cryptocurrency and others, but recently I just had to find a way of learning this kind of online trading and lot. And you will find out that they know a lot. I don't know where they were getting the information, but the way they were doing the analysis and other things. So there's a lot that you can learn when you listen to the Generation Z. That's the one on the ground. And for the Generation Z, that's 1997 to present, you know, they like interactive and visual learning. Give them TikTok, give them Instagram, all of these visual things, then they learn better. gamification. They like playing games. You always see them playing games, Candy Crush and the rest on their phone. So for these kind of people, you have to gamify your learning so that it becomes like a game for them, like Kahoot and the rest, so they can use it and they learn at a faster rate from that. Then they have short bit-sized learning. As I said, from the use of their phones, they assimilate a lot of information. Imagine having almost 5,000 to 6,000 objects per day that you assimilate from text, from reading text. One day, just try and see how many words do you read in the Facebook from the beginning to end, the videos that you see, you know, all of those things that you see, what you listen to. So it amounts to a lot of information. And if you do not give them in short bit-sized information, then there's every tendency that the information that you're sending would be lost in translation. So these are some of the ways that you can personalize the learning towards the different generations of the workforce that you have. It's very important. Whether we like it or not, we can say that as HR professionals that, okay, you have to follow what we want and you have to go to the classroom. But in the end, the return on investment is not going to be justified. And for every training and development professional, once there's training needs assessment, once we come to evaluate the training, whether it has impacted or not, it's very sad on us when the reason why we sent out people there for training, it's not being met. It's a very sad period for us, and we feel that we're not doing what we're supposed to do. So it's no longer a situation where we dictate it. We have to follow the flow and go with what they like in order to get what we want. It's a win-win for us, even though it's a very difficult, time-consuming, but it's a win-win when everyone learns what they're supposed to learn and there is return on investment for the investments that we did. So in conclusion, now, multi-generational workplace necessitates breeding a culture of inclusivity and knowledge exchange. That is, once we have a lot of people from different generations, there must be inclusivity so that everyone will feel among. Imagine when we have a workplace where everyone has its own caucus, like the Generation Z, they have their own group, they don't interact with the millennials or those kind of things. So, but now you'll see that most workplaces, they try to foster inclusivity to make sure that people come together for the organization to move forward, because it's the supreme. We are all here for the organization. And the thing is, if you do not want to work, there are a million of people out there that are willing to work. So we must make sure that at all costs we protect the organization. So by investing in this kind of personalized, inclusive learning, okay, sorry. So by investing in this kind of personalized and inclusive learning initiative, organizations ensure that all of the employees in different diverse generations are provided with the essential skills needed for it to move forward. And this is very important for us. And as a trainer, there's this happy feeling that we have once we see you have taught something to someone and he has learned it, he's applying it, and there is impact from what you have taught him. There's an improvement in productivity, there's more profit, and so on and so forth. So these kind of things, we need to make sure that they are there. So for this kind of knowledge transfer, we have to take this strategic approach to make sure that there is personalization of learning, so that the full potential of the multi-generational workflows, we can get it from, because it leads to optimization, it leads to a collective effectiveness that we all need to move forward. So once you're able to adapt the knowledge transfer session to different multi-generational workforce, there's every tendency that they will understand what they're being taught, and it will elicit a change in behavior, and there will be business optimization. So with this, I have come to the end of my presentation. If there's any question, I can take. If there's any question, clarification, I can take before handing over to my boss, Mr. Oluyemi. Any questions, you can type it in the chat room or you can unmute your mic. Hope I was within time.
Can I please speak?
Yes, okay. Please, okay, I'm not seeing you,
Yeah,
sorry.
hi. Hi,
Okay,
Anita.
okay. Anita, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So the thing is, I was going to ask, like, is it compulsory to have different communication models for all across all platforms of the various generations? I mean, can't we just do something that works for everybody, like something like an intermix or something that can just, work for everybody, something that can be simplified and work for everybody? Is it compulsory to, do all those stressful various things and all
Okay.
that?
So you see, the issue is that it's not compulsory, but a lot of information, you're going to lose it along the way, and you're going to lose a lot of people. Take, for example, in most organizations, we have mail, right? Then we have these chats that we have privately. A lot of people do not read their mails. They prefer to see it on chat or either Yammer or something that has a social media, like kind of something like that, like a social media platform for them, like Yammer. So the thing is, it's not compulsory. And as an organization, you can choose the one that you want, but the essence of transfer of knowledge or communication is that the other person understands and he responds in the way that you want him to respond. For example, I need you to go and get me water. You told the person that you communicated in the way that you wanted it. The person didn't go and get water for you. At the end, the work is suffering, the organization is suffering. So the world is dynamic and it's changing, and we just have to be innovative in order to keep afloat. It's not compulsory, but it's a necessity now. It's becoming a necessity. And although it's difficult, but once you get a hang of it, honestly, it's not that, the stress is not there. But in the beginning, whatever we're doing, whenever you're bringing change in an organization, the beginning period is the most difficult period because everyone will kick against it. The older generation will say, why do you need to personalize all of these things? Everyone should do it like that. But in the end, for most organizations that adopted this kind of learnings, that change, it becomes better for them. So it's better that you try, and in the long run, it's better to just personalize it and make sure that everyone does what you want to do and responds in the way that you want him to respond. Thank you. Any
All
other
right, thank
question?
you so much. That was very
Yes.
insightful. Thank
Right.
you.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I have two issues, or should I say concern.
Okay.
One has to do with the lack of synergy or the disconnect between the generations.
Yes.
Can you shed more light on the impact it can have on, say, mental health of the employees?
Okay.
This is one. And number two, you gave us statistics, though in America, you say you couldn't find one in Nigeria.
Yes.
But from the statistics, I can see that about 40% of the workforce are from the millennial, right? Is it from millennials?
Yes, millennials.
Yes. Good. So don't you think since the workforce is from them, but they are not at the policy making level, don't you think this is one of the reasons why most of the policies we have are failing? Because the people that will work the policies out are not in the policy making process. These are my concerns.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that wonderful question. So for your first question, now, as the issue of work-life balance, in fact, there's a lot of disconnect right now between the various multi-generational workforces in an organization. In most organizations, you'll see an organization that's almost military-like, that goes on superiority, and you cannot go and talk to your subordinate anyhow. Because of that, that's the way the organization is built. Now, in those kind of organizations, especially with the baby boomers and the Gen Zs, they don't care about, they are this kind of people that, in fact, they have this tendency, let me go back, that they're entrepreneurial-like. They're very creative and entrepreneurial-like. These kind of people don't care about your work. They can come to your work today, and in fact, if they feel like you talk to them in a rude manner, they can resign, insult you, and go. We have seen it. They will go and they will move on. They will get another job, or they will go and open their entrepreneurial businesses. So for them, work is not an option. Most of them were even forced to come and work. For some, it came out of necessity because they had no way, but most of them prefer to be on their own because they cannot be in their rigid organization. I knew of a lady that was working in one of the top 5, she was working in Mobile, and she felt like they were not connecting with her. She resigned and opened her own business, and she's doing what? Well, she's doing bricks. In fact, she's doing bricks today. But she felt that the way they were addressing her, you know, the way, the manner, she didn't feel at home. And believe you me, when I asked one of her colleagues, he said he has been addressed in that particular form for almost 10 years, and he's not feeling anything. In fact, he didn't feel that it was an issue to him. But when she resigned because of that issue, he was surprised. He said, but to him, it's normal, you know? And one of the things she complained is that when she goes home, she doesn't want to work. And her boss is the kind of person that, you know, work moves on. Once you close early, he's in the office, you must continue working. He will call you, he will send you text, he will send you mail. He needs to work to go on because that's the way he built. You know, there are some people that feel that no matter the time of the day, like for instance, they sent a mail by 5 o'clock, they will not leave the office until they finish that work. They do not like to leave leftovers till tomorrow. So once he sent that text and other things, she feels like, but I'm at home, it's my own personal time. And because of these reasons, she left the job. And the other guy, I was asking, I said, what happened? He said, he said for him, it's normal. In Lagos traffic, he will be working. He goes home, he will keep working. He has the job, he's happy about it, they're paying him well. So what is there? But to her, she needs her own time. So that's the kind of difference. So yes, there's a lot of friction and it's affecting the mental health of a lot of people. That's why it's very important to set clear expectations in most organizations. In some organizations, as a rule, they'll tell you, okay, once it's 4 o'clock, all of you should go home. We do not want anyone to work after 4 o'clock. But there are some works that they come and they're very important and you cannot leave them. A report will be like, you're working in a government, the president needs a report. He's called and say, give me this report now. You can't say because I have gone home, I'm not going to give him that report. You have to come back to the office, or whether you have your laptop, you have to send that report because they need it at that particular time. It's time bound. So a lot of people, especially for the Generation Z, they do not find this pleasant. They like 4 o'clock, we have gone home, we go and play games, we go and meet with people, play games and other things. But we just have to find a way to connect with each other. Yes, there's a lot of friction. And that takes me to your second question. Now, you know, because of the experiences that most of the Generation X have, and, you know, they are very focused and they're detail-oriented. So a lot of things that you feel are unimportant to you, you send a report and there are not some info. You know, there's just a disconnect in the communication between two people because the Generation X, they're detail-oriented. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, I was reading a novel, The Day of the Jackal, and the Jackal, when he was planning to assassinate something, he had all of the information that he needed except one. He didn't account for the daylight saving, something like that. So when he was doing his calculation about the darkness, about the wind and everything, he didn't accommodate that the time of night will set in earlier than the previous year because he has been preparing for this particular operation for a year. So when you're dealing with Generation X, they need to know all of this information. And you know, for those of us who are multitaskers, between the generation, you know, the Millennials and the Generation Z, We just feel that we know everything. We do not do deep research, and we just bring up things like that. And in the end, they will say, no, this is not what we want. And we'll feel like we have tried our best, we have done our best. But believe you me, there's something that we might have missed that they have seen. And sometimes they will not tell you, okay, this is what, no. They'll just say this.
Okay, I suspect network has taken out our facilitator for tonight. Let's just hold on for a few more minutes. Oh, I'm sure, hopefully, we'll be back. He has done justice to the topic, and I'm very grateful and thankful to him, and also to the questions that have been asked so far. However, while we wait, in case anyone has any comment or contribution, you just want to say something with respect to the topic we've been considering tonight, this is also a good opportunity. You can also please speak and either share from your experience, your expertise, or your knowledge with us tonight while we're waiting for him to come back. Let me also check the chat box if there are any comments.
Yeah, hello, can I say something?
Please go ahead, by all means. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've attended another webinar, not by this organization, but
Is it me? I can't seem to hear you anymore.
like that webinar. Where hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, please go over what you said again. We
Yeah, so
lost
I
your...
said, yeah, the call came in, sorry. So the thing is, I've attended another webinar that said something like, that sometimes the generational differences are very complex in the sense that, hello, can you hear me? The generational differences are complex in the sense that a Gen Z might act like a millennial. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
A Gen Z might act like a millennial. People act differently. And sometimes it's not really about the generational difference, it's how they were raised and their exposure levels, right? So I'm just saying that my point is that sometimes it's not always a one-size-fits-all thing. You get people that are acting differently and they're not acting according to their own generational categories. Do you understand? So that's all that's what I want to say.
Thank you so much for your brilliant contribution. Yeah, very spot on. And there are multiple factors. So generation, for example, is just one factor. For example, you have other factors like personality types or traits. Okay, extroverts, introverts, and the different categories. Then you also mention how people are raised. In other words, it's not just nature, it's also nurture. Did you grow up, for example, in the South, in the West, where in the South, where in the West, where in the North? Okay, what kind of exposure did you have in terms of upbringing, your primary school, your secondary school? Who are your family members? So you are very spot on. There are multiple factors and parameters that play in these dynamics. And so, of course, when you are teaching broadly, but that does not now eliminate our individual professional initiative in the context. So you don't, as HR professional, just don't ask somebody and say, how old are you? Oh, you're a millennial. Oh, going forward, I'll be treating you like a millennial. or, oh, you are a Gen Z. No, you will watch that person's traits, characteristics, how they respond to issues, how they speak, how they behave, and then you now begin to find a way to relate with them, manage with them. Don't forget that the outcome eventually is you want to get them to be super productive. You want to make them, hyper productive, of course, in ways and manners that are still in alignment with the organizational values, in ways and manners that are also, ethical. And that's the ultimate. So it's not like to say, oh, again, for example, there are cultural, maybe somebody is Yoruba, Igbo, or Hausa, but that doesn't mean that every Yoruba or every Igbo or every Hausa is operates or functions or things in a particular manner. No. That would be very presumptuous. And I can say categorically too that the facilitator tonight, Bazali, has not in any way tried to communicate that. Of course, we teach in concept, and of course, as professionals, we're not able to contextualize on a case by case basis. Brilliant contribution,
All
by
right,
the way.
thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
wonderful insight to the
Thank you.
contribution.
Thank you. Again, we'd like to still take comments, contributions, questions. Anyone, please. Feel free to share your thoughts, your opinions.
This is not really a contribution, but I'm just trying to say
Right.
I'm about to exit this webinar because I have an engagement, and the person already called me by 9, but I have to postpone it. So I'm so sorry. I really miss out, but I could go back and watch video on YouTube. But I really appreciate this whole talk and everything. It was very insightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your professionalism and courtesy. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Good night. So we may wrap up the call essentially when the presentation technically is over and our facilitator has been able to attend to some of the questions and contributions. We've also been able to take any comment. I'll wait for 1 more minute. Does anyone have any questions? I'll stand in for the facilitator and respond, or a comment or contribution. If not, we're excited to call it a wrap tonight, and we'll see, by God's grace, God willing, weekend. All right, I'm checking the chat box just to see if I'm missing out anything. Okay, all right. Thank you. Ade says, you took the words out of my mouth or mind. Some people don't act their generation at all. Personality has a big role. Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you to every one of us that joined us tonight. I also like to sincerely thank our facilitator, Bazali Mohammed. Despite his tight schedule, he joined us tonight and he did excellently well. I would like to say that I'm going to chat him up. We'll bring him back very soon. I'm also reach out to him because we are going to connect him to 1 or 2 other places he needs to speak. He is a voice that needs to be heard. Of course, I'm not surprised. The moment I knew he was a distinguished Toastmasters, I'm a distinguished Toastmaster myself. I know what that means. Okay, it's prolific, it's sound, and the quality both of his presentation, the experience, the expertise, even the quality of the sound of the slide was top-notch. I'm proud to know him and to be associated with him. Ladies and gentlemen, I also celebrate you, your commitment to knowledge, for learning. Some people say, why do you do this? It's because we have to grow. If we grow, we will learn. If we learn, we will earn. Nobody who learns can ever be stranded. Some people say, isn't it too much? It's not too much. We watch football every time. We watch movies every time. We eat every day. It's not too much. Whatever is important, we do regularly and as frequently as required. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's get some rest. Sleep tight. Good night. Bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye.